Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Cantrip podcast. For this week, my guest is Coach from the Bazaar, and on his channel, he makes videos discussing the history of sets with Magic the Gathering and other fun stuff. And I had a really decent conversation with him, and I'm gonna let you guys know now, during the video there's going to be gameplay, and that's because we were both playing a game of Magic while we were talking to each other at the same time. It was kind of an idea that I had, instead of putting up a blank screen with nothing and a white screen like the first episode of the podcast. I figured I'd give you guys something to look at, and I would have my face or whatever and my guest face, because it's not like I haven't had face cam before, but I don't have a webcam. So until I get a webcam, this is pretty much the best that you're going to get, unless you guys don't like this style. And if you don't, let me know. If you do like it, let me know in the comments down below. Your guys' feedback is the most important thing for me as a content creator, so that way I can improve my quote-unquote craft. Anyways, let's get into the podcast. Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Cantrip podcast with my guest today from the Bazaar. Coach, how are you doing?
Hi, we're doing good. It's a lovely evening over here in South Texas.
Nice. What time is it over there?
Right now it's 9:05, so I think it's, let's see, that'd be 7:05 for you over in Oregon?
Yeah, you're about 2 hours ahead of me.
Sweet.
So for the podcast, I decided I wanted a visual aspect, but I don't yet have a webcam to show my face and my guest face, for example. So I figured to compensate, we're going to play a game of Magic as we're talking, and we're playing Frontier, and I myself am playing a blue-green crush deck that focuses around ramping and taking extra turns and all that kind of fun stuff. Coach, what are you playing?
All right, so we're going to go. This is what I started with, because I started in cons. We're going to go Black-White Warriors.
Black-White Warriors, sweet. All right, I like it. All right, so I won the die roll. Yes, I'd like to play first. So, on the docket today, I'd like to get started with Magic the Gathering story. So, in terms of story, I'm just going to cut right to the chase. I am not a big fan of the Justice League or the Gatewatch. I mean, I appreciated the concept initially with this whole, Avengers type thing, but it seems like over the course of, these past 3 or 4 blocks, or 3 blocks, I should say, it's kind of worn on me. How do you feel about it?
I think they kind of dragged it out, too, a little bit. Battle for Zendikar and, Shadows. I mean, that was... I like the story, but I think now going into Kaladesh, not fighting the Eldrazi, the Eldrazi menace, it's kind of they're just they're trying to figure out ways to keep the Gatewatch going.
Mm-hmm.
So, but so far, they need to change it up, in my opinion.
Yeah, same. I feel like somebody needs to die with the introduction of a Johnny and Kaladesh block. It kind of seems fitting that they're might be getting rid of a green planeswalker or white planeswalker in the Gatewatch, maybe Nissa or Gideon. I kind of have a feeling because it's Gideon for the whole that's kind of his shtick. He's selfless and that kind of thing. I feel like we need that kind of shake up in order to prevent it from getting really stale, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, and it was the same thing with. It might be the same situation as with, let's see, what was her name? Elspeth.
Mm-hmm.
Because Elspeth ended up dying, and that was kind of a decent hit to the lore community. So, but the thing that the reason might not be Gideon is because his magic is based on him being indestructible, and that's what Ether Hub brings up quite often is that his he's indestructible, but he could still feel pain, so he could still feel the pressure of all that stuff. So I I don't think it might be getting. I think if it's a green or white planeswalker, it might be. I think, in my opinion, it might be Nissa Ravine.
Yeah. I definitely feel the
So
same about Nissa as well. Like, I feel she's kind of expendable because, personally, I feel like she's not that interesting of a character in the story. If I'm being honest, I really don't think any of the characters are really that interesting, except for, like, Chandra a bit, because we've been focusing on her and her family with this whole Kaladesh stuff. But other than that, I'm just not really sold on any of the characters, so I feel like they're all super expendable in my opinion. What about you?
Liliana.
Liliana?
Oh hell yeah! Her with the with like the chain veil and the stuff with like making the deals with the demons and such. I mean, that was her starting off like that. That was a cool deal. And her and like Chandra like getting into trouble. Her being like this negative influence on her. I mean, it's kind of like the stuff we need. They can't all be goody two shoes. I mean, that's that's kind of dumb in my opinion. You got to have someone that will fall off the rails or fall off the tracks a little bit and make the story more interesting in my opinion. But that's just me. I don't know how other people roll, but that's how I like my storyline with they can't all be perfect. There's just no way.
Yeah, and from what I understand, Liliana was talking about how one of the other demons that she was contracted with is based in Amonkhet or something like that.
I believe so. Yes. So we'll find out. Hopefully this set kicks ass because they have they're going off the theme of like Egyptian history. So in Egyptian history, like it's very extensive. With the old, middle, and new kingdom, I just want to see what they kind of want to base it off of because people have this concept of ancient Egypt. They mostly see it from like the old kingdom era, where it was like 2600 BCs, where the pyramids were being made, and you had all this stuff going on with like mass buildings and such. But Egyptian history, it goes more into that, especially when you get closer to like the Persians and then later on like the Romans with like Cleopatra. So it could be hopefully they I think it's going to be based on Old Kingdom Egypt, but who knows? But like I said, there's thousands of years of Egyptian history to work with, and there's so much you can play with in terms of like Egypt. So, and then I think also with the gods that they're showing, it's going to be kind of the same deal with Theros, where you have a monocolored creature that's going to act like a god and have this special ability. So that's my opinion, and I hope it's true. But Wizards of the Coast has a way to throw a monkey wrench in there. So
yeah, they have a knack of not necessarily ruining a good thing, but it can't all be perfect, though. I think that's the same with everybody else. But actually, I don't think I asked, what is it that you do? Like, what are you? So that way the audience members know.
Oh, shoot! I keep forgetting that. I'm this unknown character in the Magic the Gathering community. I'm actually a high school social studies teacher, and I'm also a football and head powerlifting coach over at the school I work with in South Texas. And that's like, it's kind of my deal. I've been a teacher for 4 years, and I've been doing social studies and world history and world geography for this good amount of time. So that's why with Amonkhet, it's like I kind of get into I kind of get carried away with my history stuff. So but yes, I've been a teacher for 4 years, and I love the profession right now. There are some kinks in it, but overall it's good. The kids are great, and it's different. So
So what about YouTube? What is it that you do on YouTube?
I do the series called Card Anthology, and it is a series that goes over the set histories of the different Magic the Gathering like stuff, the boosters, the expansions, and it's something no one has really, I don't think has really done on a like what we had. So we're just going over the histories of some of the cards that were contained inside, like let's say alpha and beta, or some of the stuff coming out of like revised, or like what you did a month back, like 5th edition. We're just going over like specific cards or what Wizards of the Coast was doing at the time. It's just like a little history lesson with the sets that were going on, because Magic back then was just outright crazy in some cases. There were some mechanics that, if you put in today, would be very questionable at best, because there was some crazy crap going on.
Yeah. Back then, things were a little out of control. They didn't really understand why certain cards were more powerful than others. I mean, oh God, who was it? I think it was Rudy from Alpha Investments. In one of his videos, he had an issue of Scry magazine, and in it, they were talking about Ancestral Recall, and they were saying how Ancestral Recall, while it was a good card, it's not necessarily the best, but in hindsight, that may be a little untrue.
Yeah, I remember seeing that episode too, and didn't they have it where it was like it was actually not supposed to be that good of a card, like back then, and they just like it got like I think they did a grade. It was like C minus. It might have been another video, but they gave it like a C minus, or it wasn't even that worth mentioning for the card type that it was.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah, I think what it might be was like people back then didn't really understand the concept of like card advantage or anything like that.
Yeah, and they really didn't. It's when you're starting off a game where it's because Richard Garfield, he has his PhD in like a field with statistics and numbers, so he's he's got expertise in mathematics. But even with coming up with a game like this, you're going to run into some kinks where nothing's going to be really that perfect starting off. So there are going to be some overpowered cards in comparison to today. Today you've got, let's see, Magic started in 1993. You had 24 years to revise your game over and over and over again. So, of course there's going to be stuff that's either broken or overpowered. But at least it's not the case like, what was it, Yu-Gi-Oh!, where you had the really weak cards coming out, with the exception of like a few, and then you start getting into these ridiculous powerful stuff like Pendulum Monsters, and now I think like I saw something on there, it's gonna be like the Link Monsters or some crap like that. So, at least with Wizards, it's like you got these high valued cards where if you do have one of these, it's gonna benefit you. Whereas like with Yu-Gi-Oh, it's the complete opposite. So, but when you start off any game or creating like anything, you're gonna run into some kinks, and that's I don't want to sound like a Wizards apologist, but you're going to run into stuff eventually, or it could be beginning, middle, or end. It's going to happen. Nothing's perfect.
Yeah.
So and that's what I mentioned. Like when I was on Jonathan's channel at They Said We Said, we didn't want to sound like apologists, but that was the thing that was going on with when they're having new mechanics or when they're doing different things. There's going to be some kinks. Like I was talking to him about with the vehicles, and also with the stuff from like Aether Revolt. Like they banned Smuggler's Copter, but then you got the Heart of Kirin that comes out, and it's also a broken card as well. So I was telling him like you're going to run into stuff like that, especially when you are pushing a mechanic like vehicles. That's twice that it happens. It's very rare that you run into like two broken mechanics or two different cards, almost kind of back to back. So, but it happens. So hopefully it doesn't happen a third time. Hopefully by this time around, like they've got enough sense where, okay, we should probably like pull back on vehicles, and that way like the game could get back on its feet.
Yeah, I get you on that. I I don't know. When it comes to like people and criticizing Wizards of the Coast, I feel like there's this mood that I see people have where when you criticize Wizards of the Coast, people think that you're being overtly negative, and I think it's not that. Hold on. Woo! I had to sneeze for a second. When you're being critical of Wizards of the Coast, people think that you're being overly negative, and I don't really think that can be true exactly. Like, I don't know. When you're being critical of somebody, it's not necessarily that you're being negative. It's just that you're presenting an argument, like a separate argument, rather than, geez, I can't read these cards correctly. I'm doing incorrect blocks. But
Yeah, it's there's a Bludgeon Rager that has mana, so you could only block the manifest creature.
oh, okay, that's what is going on. All right.
Yep.
Yeah, I feel like whenever you're being critical of Wizards of the Coast, I feel like people are saying that you're being like super negative, but I don't know if I can come back from this position. You pretty much got me at this point.
Oh,
Uh,
hell.
yeah, I think I might have to concede at this point. But yeah, whenever you're being critical of Wizards of the Coast, people think that you're being super negative, but it's just like, no, you can't say that I'm being super negative. It's just like I can't present a certain argument and like you don't agree with it. Well, I'm sorry that you don't agree with it, but people are going to have their criticisms. Not everyone is going to view the same thing or whatever. So like whenever I see people saying that like, oh, you can't be overtly like Desolator Magic, for example. People say that they can't stand him because he's super negative, but at the same time, I mean, like even though I have criticisms about him, he's still being critical of Wizards of the Coast. So I don't know. That's how I kind of feel about like criticizing Wizards of the Coast. I don't believe that they're exactly exempt or anything like that, personally.
No, they shouldn't be, because if nobody criticizes them, then they have no feedback to go off of. Most criticism people will take negatively. And like in my profession, you have to take the criticism, like you have to take it serious, but at the same time, it's not all bad. It's more of a, you learn from it and you go with it. So when people are criticizing Wizards, like people always think it's negative. It's not. Criticism is needed. Criticism is needed to make stuff better, in my opinion. Right. And if people don't see it that way, then you're not doing the right thing. And so,
Yeah,
but
like
criticism is much needed.
yeah, like at the beginning of the game when like for Magic the Gathering in terms of like the early 90s and late 90s and stuff like that, it was like a bit broken or whatever. People criticize like, hey, this is a little unfair or whatever, and then like Wizards is like, okay, I guess we'll slow down the game or whatever. But that continues throughout time. Like over time, if people complain about standard or whatever, like oh god, what's a good example? Earlier this year or last year, Sam Stoddard asked on Twitter a bunch of people like, if you could rate standard, how would you? And everyone kept giving it like from a scale of 1 to 10, like 3s and 2s and that kind of thing. And
Yeah.
It's funny because a few weeks or a couple months later, Wizards announces that they banned all those cards in Standard and that there's going to be a new ban cycle like 5 weeks after the Pro Tour. So, yeah, like without that kind of criticism, like if Wizards wasn't asking for criticism and we weren't able to give it to them, then we wouldn't have what we would have today. Now, you could argue that the bans were a bad thing, but me personally, I feel like they're a good thing because they kind of like changed things up or something, or like anything like that. It's just like it proves that like Wizards can take criticism and apply it to their product. They don't have their heads shoved up their asses. Personally, I feel
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
at least they're willing to open up and listen to their consumers.
Well, if you let's see, they started doing that. When I was doing my research for a card anthology, the one thing that hit out was they did the deal with the Dark. If you watch that episode that I did, the Dark, it's only like 4.5, 5 minutes, but it kind of brought the aspect, like, it was a very low power set to begin with, and that was because the earlier sets were so high powered, and then they're starting to listen to the criticism of the people, and then you're not going to make everyone happy. So
No.
Wizards ran into the problem where you had a very low powered set, and kind of it was balanced, but it was still very low power compared to, let's say,
Like
Arabian
Alpha
Nights.
or whatever.
Yeah, Alpha. Obviously, with Alpha, you had it all just, you just have, Bolt came out. Bolt was coming out of that. You also had Ancestral Recall. You had the Moons. You had the Moxes. Oh God, the list.
Like Wheel of Fortune, just a bunch of super powerful cards that would not even see standard print like remotely at all today.
It would have been banned after a Friday Night Magic in this time.
This is very true.
And I'm trying to get, man, I'm trying, I don't know what the hell's going on my laptop. I'm trying to play a freaking Concealed Courtyard. It's not letting me.
Oh, weird.
Okay, there it is. There it is. Sweet. No, I think my laptop's running like a little bit low, but yeah, like when they started doing, they did this back in 1995 with the Dark, and people were extremely upset when it came out. And then the seventh set, Fallen Empires, they kind of took the same deal as well. And
wasn't like Fallen Empires like lauded as like one of the worst sets ever?
Fallen Empires
and like
the Dark were Homelands. I think Fallen Empires, for most people's consent, I still think it was better than Homelands because, let me see, you had Hymn to Torok in Fallen Empires, and that was a good card. And then I believe the Dark, you had Blood Moon, and like Homelands, I don't think it has. Oh shoot, I'm trying to remember with
the only cards I can remember from Homelands is like Baron Sanger and like Apocalypse Chime. That's it. From what I understand, that set has like no good cards because it was like, from what I understand, Homelands was like developed by like 2 or 3 really inexperienced designers, and they had a very like small time frame of developing the set, like 6 months, or I think I might have heard like 6 weeks or something like that.
Yeah, 6 months. I think 6 months was like around the time where you could get a decent amount of time in designing and developing a set. With 6 weeks though, that's really pushing it.
Oh yeah.
So, and I can't remember exactly what the history, but I think you were right about that they were bringing some inexperienced testers, developers, designers to the set. But like I said, also at the same time, Wizards was trying to power down these extremely powerful cards coming out of Alpha, Beta, Arabian Nights, Antiquities, and also I believe Revised Edition, or I might be off for that one, but those were high powered sets, including like the reprints. So and then Unlimited set too. So Revised I think was after the Dark, but you had Unlimited as well, which was just Alpha, Beta, and then a white bordered seal. Mm-hmm. So I mean, those were extremely high powered cards, and then you come with the Dark. Oh, let's lower the power. Oh, people are unhappy again. So you can't win them all.
Right, you can't please everyone.
Mm-mm.
So
and their job is, being a designer, developer, like trying to please as many people as possible, on top of pleasing Hasbro as well. Hasbro's probably coming down their throat like, look, this stuff needs to sell.
Yeah.
So
especially since they've like, from what I understand, from like since like maybe Alara or even before then, each year has like turned a profit, and I could be totally wrong on that, but I know for a fact that Return to Ravnica was the best-selling set of its year, and like Theros was the best-selling set of its year, and so on and so forth. And the same is true for like Khans of Tarkir and Battle for Zendikar. But I don't know if the same is for Kaladesh. But from what I understand, like Hasbro is in that they're used to it being so profitable that they're like harping on Wizards, like, hey, you've been doing so well for so long, don't fuck it up.
Oh yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
Like, it's a I wouldn't want to be a subsidiary to Hasbro because I mean they're huge toy companies and they probably have a lot of goals that they need to meet that their execs want to meet, and being a company like Wizards of the Coast, and you got to sell those booster packs. I mean that's all you could do for the most part because that's their best selling product is booster packs.
Oh yeah. They're all about selling that sealed product. They always have been. But so in terms of like Magic's future, since we're already talking about that, right around the corner, I think a couple months from now, April is when I think Amonkhet releases. How do you feel about Amonkhet?
Well, I hope they do it the same way as like Theros, where you do have these monocolored gods. That would be a cool, interesting concept to bring back. Mm-hmm. You were talking earlier about Egyptian history and stuff. They got, if they're going to base it off that, Wizards has a lot of room to work with, and it's going to be awesome when hopefully who is it, Nicol Bolas? I hope he makes an appearance because that will probably get a lot of people's interest.
Yeah,
I think
it would be a good idea, or it would be a bad idea for them to not put Nicol Bolas in there, since there's already a card in the Kaladesh set, Dark Intimations, where it mentions like a Bolas Planeswalker card. So if they have that in standard, but no Bolas Planeswalker to work with the card, yeah, that would be a really bad idea, especially since Amonkhet is Nicol Bolas' plane. Like, he has to show up as either, like, a creature or a planeswalker, some form.
Oh, yeah, you're talking about an Elder Dragon from the Legend set. And if you see Nicol Bolas' old portrait, his old high school photo, I mean, that was... he looked ugly, but now he's become this really big badass. I mean, he's always been a big badass, but, now he's got his... He had his, spark ignited, and now he's, he should be coming out here, so he's going to be, a terrifying threat to the Gatewatch. So Nicol Bolas better make a damn good appearance in Amonkhet.
Yeah, he really should. A part of me wants to believe that his planeswalker or creature is just going to be a big dumb thing, like. Yeah, it could be like this devastating card, kind of like how Emrakul was, and like Emrakul was like the main story card. But I feel like with Nicol Bolas, they might just make him a big, like, sweet, cool EDH card, and like that's it.
Yeah.
But like how you were talking about with the gods earlier, I've heard some speculation of people like thinking about, is this going to be monocolored or is it going to be multicolored or something like that? But I was thinking, is it going to be the same as in, like, is it going to be enchantment creatures like it was in Theros, or is it going to be a different type of god? Like, is it going to be god card, and then it just has god in its name and like god in its creature type, and then it's just like some regular random creature or something like that? There's a part of me that wants it to not be like the Theros gods, because I feel like it's too soon. We just had Theros in 2013 with the whole enchantment theme, and if we go back to that, I feel like we're just treading over stuff that really needs to not be treaded over again. I don't know if that makes any sense, but like I feel like it's a bit too soon in my opinion personally. What do you feel?
I like the enchantment gods. Like, my favorite was Erebos because of the 2 mana pay some life and draw a card. So that was always good. And then like with Heliod, it was the pay 4 and you get a 2/1 cleric. So it's to me those were fine. They could be a different form. I wouldn't mind if it was a different form at all.
Yeah.
If it was like, oh, I don't even know what they would. I don't even know what kind of hybrid creature or
I would say like maybe an artifact creatures, like artifact, like kind of how it was enchantment creatures, but it would be artifact creatures. But we just had Kaladesh, which was super artifact based, so I don't know if they're willing to do that again, but who knows, maybe they might do enchantment creature gods, but it won't be an enchantment themed block. So I don't know.
Because was it with the Theros block that you had the bestow, or am I thinking of something else? Because bestow was the creatures that could be enchanted upon another creature, and then you could like make it into another creature, or you could, once that creature dies, then it becomes the actual creature, not a true enchantment where it just goes in the graveyard. So I mean, bestow was a pretty decent concept. I mean, it was something different, just like with Kaladesh, the vehicles.
Yeah.
So the vehicles, we've never seen really a big thing that's pushed like vehicles, where you actually have to tap creatures to crew this monstrosity like Heart of Kirin, or Smuggler's Copter, or just the big trains and race cars and all that from Kaladesh.
Yeah. With bestow, how you were talking about earlier, I feel like bestow, and it's like how we were talking about how Kaladesh is, its vehicles were kind of broken because, we have like the Smuggler's Copter issue, or Heart of Kirin, or anything like that. I feel like with Theros, with like bestow, I felt like bestow was kind of the opposite. I felt like bestow was kind of underpowered, except for like save a few cards, like what was that one called, Boon Satyr, I think. But I like the concept of it because you slam down your enchantment on a creature, and if that creature dies or whatever, you still get another creature on top of it, and that was the benefit of a card like that. But
Correct.
I don't know. I feel like with like Kaladesh or Theros, I'm trying to figure out the point I'm getting at. I'm getting kind of lost because I'm focusing on the game and talking to you at the same time. But yeah, whatever it's going to be in Amonkhet, whether or not they decide to bring back bestow or not, I feel like with vehicles, Wizards of the Coast, whatever the block's main mechanic is going to be, I feel like it won't be as broken as, say, the vehicles were,
Yeah. Well, we'll just have to see. I mean, that's kind of another thing where you want to like try to, Wizards wants to surprise its audience with something good, and that's just being anything. You want to make sure that want to kind of keep it hush hush as possible and not reveal your entire hand. It's always nice to have like, oh, I wonder what's going to come out in here. Like that's why I like with the spoilers and like all the spoilers and stuff. I don't really like follow the spoilers too much, except for maybe the first couple of days, and just to kind of give it an idea and think of it on my own. Because in the end I like being surprised like what WotC is going to do with a particular set. Mm-hmm. So that I always like surprises, whether it's something like vehicles, which I like vehicles. I never played vehicles that much, but it was a cool concept, and a lot of people liked it, especially people who were doing the Boros and Mardu vehicles. Oh, yeah. So it was I like the surprises. That's I want to see what WotC can come up with to make people happy, to make their consumers happy. So I always like the surprise factor.
Yeah, same. So with Amonkhet, the next set being Hour of Devastation. We were talking earlier about Planeswalkers dying. Do you think Hour of Devastation is going to allude to a Planeswalker dying, or do you think that it's talking about something else?
It could mean either one of the main characters is going to die, or you could have it to where, you know, the storyline puts where, you know, most or all of the Gatewatch is going to be in some sort of intimate danger, with, you know, the idea that Nicol Bolas should show up here. Mm-hmm. You know, that's just having an Elder Dragon who's a Planeswalker. Yeah, that's scary. That would be scary in my opinion. So I would think be the, you know, or in the case where Nicol Bolas might be trying to kill the Gatewatch, where he might just outright destroy what he created, his entire plane. So that might be the devastation that could be upon the storyline, could be upon the Gatewatch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard speculation about Hour of Devastation being like the concept of made planes, like Karn's Mirrodin or Sarah's Sanctum in the past. Like, if it's an artificial plane, it like more than likely will get destroyed. So a lot of people have been thinking that Hour of Devastation is possibly talking about that as well, like the plane Amonkhet just gets blown up or whatever.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to find out, and then once that comes out, then I guess I'm going to be shooting over to Simon Ward to see what he thinks, because they usually, you know, once the articles start coming out with the stories, I mean, they'll be, they'll pretty much find out.
Oh man, I made a bad play. I forgot that you had that Irration foremost.
Yep.
Oh no. All right. Well, I think you got it this game because you got lethal regardless.
Well, I mean, let's see. If I give one double strike, Hidden Dragon Slayer will shoot him for 3 because Irration Foremost doesn't have haste. So
well, right. Oh no, yeah, you're right. Because I just have to block the double striker. Okay, I'm not totally dead. All right. I just have to block the double striker. If you had Blood Chin Rager, then I'd be dead.
Yeah, if Blood Chin Rager was on the field from the last turn, then yes. But you know, you did that. You did the return on my card, so I have all 3 of my Blood Chin Ragers in my hand. All right, so you have to block the. Let's see, you gotta block the double striker.
Yep. I left up one creature to block, and then I forgot that you have a double strike enabler.
Yep.
Man, Warriors coming out of the gate swinging. I think I made a few bad plays too because I've been kind of distracted by talking to you, so I like haven't thought out all my stuff. But I don't know. Your deck seems way too fast for me to even handle, even if I was playing correctly. I think you're just a really good matchup against me.
Well, I was trying to see, and I don't know what's going on with my laptop, but I was trying to change it to where, because I have what I like to do sometimes is, playbook wise, I like to have a completely different style offense. So I like going from aggro to control, and I had the perfect setup to where I could be a complete control player. Mm-hmm. And it just, apparently, I was trying to take a Mardu, oh my god, the Dash guy. I just had him. I was trying to take him out, and there was like 5 seconds left, but it kept freezing up. So that 2.5 minutes, I was putting in all my big stuff coming in, and it just, nope. didn't work out for me. So, but it just
deal with that.
Well, it just stuck with the original build. Mm-hmm. So it was, oh god, it was a pain in the ass. But I was gonna try to switch my style on you because I started off as an aggro player, and now like control is starting to look pretty damn hot right now.
Yeah, in terms of like standard, you mean?
Well, just
in general.
In general, like what happens is that, what I've seen from the past couple years, and then just looking through some of the stuff from just reading up on past articles and such, like it seems like starting off, you have the aggro players come out of the gate and just do all this crazy crap, And then it's like the next time with the Grand Prix and such, then the control players start to make their presence known.
Yeah, because they
So
learn from like the first few weeks. They check out all the aggro decks and find out what cards they're weak against, and then they try to compensate by bringing cards that they think would be good against the aggro players.
exactly.
And then in turn, the aggro players try to change their aggro decks. So I like that kind of organic deck building among the community with like the whole rock paper scissors thing. You have like aggro, combo, and control. Like you have those three like pillars, and there's like a fourth pillar of like mid range, which it seems to be Wizards' most favorite thing at this point. You know, they just want creatures to smack into each other all the time. But hey, you know what? Whatever makes them money. Because from what I understand, the reason why they do that is because it's appealing to newer players, because it's somewhat easier for them to understand rather than casting a bunch of spells in one turn and then, oh, storm, you're dead, or whatever. They much rather see a siege rhino enter the battlefield and then, like what you're doing right now, like playing a bunch of creatures. New players like to see that because it's like easier to understand. You know, I can actually see why my opponent is going to win over me as opposed to like a storm deck or whatever. But I was getting way off track. That weird, or that dichotomy between different play styles, like okay, hold on, I'm trying to figure out my blocks. But yeah, that dichotomy of aggro, control, combo, mid-range. I like how people complain that in the past Wizards hasn't been able to balance that, but I feel like they have been. But people will always argue, but I feel like personally Wizards has done a really good job with making sure that you know, it isn't completely busted in terms of like only control is good, or only aggro is good, or only teamer combo is good.
Yeah, they've done a pretty, like, you know, they've done a decent job with the balancing act that they have for their format. So, you know, there's been a couple kinks where with certain sets where that might not be the case, but overall, I think they've gotten it down to where they should know what they're doing. So I think they've done a really good job. Like I said, they had 24 years to work with since you know, Alpha came out in August of 1993, and that was, even before that you had all the their pre-release stuff at the fairs and before that. But yeah, 1993 to now, you had 24 years to work with, and Magic is still kicking. Like, you know, we were talking about this. One of our assistant coaches, before he left for a different school district, you know, he played Magic when he was 17, 18 years old, and you know, we're trying to make a kind of a business out of this, and you know, it's still relevant today. When something from like, you know, the 90s is still relevant to like now, or still like very popular now, you know, it's done a pretty damn good job.
Yeah, I most definitely agree with you. Like, as many criticisms as I may send Wizards their way, they've done a fantastic job overall with this game. I like, even though I could criticize all I want, I would not be able to work at the same level they do. You know, they've been creating cards for 20 years at this point, over 20 years, and they know what they're doing. And just like people like you and me or whoever can complain all we want, but like at the end of the day, it's like we don't really know what's going on behind closed doors. These guys have been doing this for so long that they just, they know what they're doing.
Oh yeah, it's like with when I was talking to Jonathan last week. He just so happened to call me, and we were talking about some of the ideas for the new card anthology, because I asked him to do the Urza block. We were talking about Mark Rosewater, and you know, Mark Rosewater's been, you know, lead designer, developer. He's been, you know, the one I'm about to release tomorrow. He, you know, for Portal Second Age, he was both leads. Mm-hmm. So having, you know, he's done the job, and then you have like people like Joel Mick, Dan Cervelli, who's, you know, been in some of the earlier stuff, and then you got, with fifth edition, you had William Jockish cut a little bit later. They've been doing that. They've been doing this stuff for like forever. It seems like, so they know what they're doing. They've been to stuff where they've gone through the alpha cards and like, okay, this is overpowered, and then they got to Fallen Empires, and then they got to, the stuff with, later like Classic 6th Edition and Shards of Alar. They've been all over the place. So, they know what they're doing, and like you still have Mark Rosewater and Watsy, and they still consult with Richard Garfield every now and then, because he was for the first 5 or 6 sets, for the most part, he was involved heavily with that stuff. So even Richard Garfield, the creator of Magic, he's still somewhat involved with it. I mean, and he's like a consultant to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He talked to Wizards, and like Wizards is like, hey, is this a good idea? And Richard Garfield's like, no, that's not a good idea. And Wizards is like, okay, we're gonna do it anyways. That's how Planeswalkers were, I think, not exactly. From what I understand, Richard Garfield had a little bit of dissent about Planeswalkers in the beginning, through like old YouTube videos from like 2011 or whatever. But that's all that we got today for the game and the podcast today. Coach, I'd like to thank you for coming on with me.
Yes, sir. No problem.
All right.
Thank you for having me on.
Definitely. And you guys can catch him where? What's your YouTube channel name? The Card Bazaar, right?
Yeah, definitely. Come check us out at the Card Bazaar. Our main specialty right now is the card anthology series. So right now, we drop an episode tomorrow over, Portal Second Age. So we'll be going over that introductory set. So it'll be, I just finished editing the audio, and now I just got to throw in pictures. So it's going to be about a 10.5-minute episode, give or take.
Very nice, very nice. And is it going to be this next week with Unglued, right?
Unglued, it will be, we're trying to shoot for next Sunday. So hopefully my big man, you could be the special comedic narrator for that one, just like with the 5th edition, the little shit that you put in, because that was still a pretty funny episode. So I had to looking at it the first time, I'm like, what the shit is he doing? And just like, okay, I guess we'll roll with it. So that's when I started looking up memes and make your make your voice shine, because you already did that. So I had to do like all the fun stuff throwing in there.
Oh yeah, that's me. I'm a troll at heart, always will be. But
that's a beautiful craft.
Yes, it takes much experience in pissing off other people and all that sorts of fun stuff. But thank you again for coming on with me, and I'll make sure everyone, if you all reach this point in the podcast, next week I'm going to be on the card anthology series going over Unglued, and you can backlog all of their videos going over each set. It's very informative, actually. It just delves into each of the sets and talks about like what's in it and how it was developed and all that sort of fun stuff, and it's very entertaining. And Coach, I want to thank you again for coming on with me.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me on.
All right, and you guys all have a good night, and Coach, you have a good night.
You too. Thank you.